The ProHeat system can also be used with liquid-cooled components for applications requiring flexibility and high temperatures. A specially designed heavy-duty cooler attaches to the base of the ProHeat power source. Be sure to first connect the power and control cable as you see here, before setting the power source into its tray. Using the lifting eye, place the ProHeat power source atop the cooler. Then fasten it into place with screws along both sides of the power source. It is a high-performance, high-output cooler designed to protect the heating cable from damage. The cooler includes a precision water flow sensor and paddle wheel flow indicator. This is a flow-regulated system, not pressure-regulated, to properly monitor coolant flow. Should the cooler detect insufficient flow, the power source will shut down to protect the system and cables. The cooler also includes two cleanable filters, one on input and one on output, to remove debris from the coolant. A coolant is used that contains a combination of antifreeze, algicide, and pump lubricant, ingredients that help ensure the cooler's reliable performance. The power source monitors coolant temperature within the cooler so as not to exceed duty cycle, again as protection for the system and cables. A panel-mounted on-off switch controls the cooler operation. An added feature is a cooler on override. Should an operator forget to engage the cooler and the system detects a liquid-cooled cable, the system will automatically turn it on. Liquid-cooled output cables easily attach to the rear of the ProHeat power source. The ProHeat power source has an intelligent cable identification system. It will recognize that liquid-cooled cables are connected, allowing the system to operate at full power while alerting the cooler-on override feature. Liquid-cooled components include flexible induction heating cables. These silicone hoses enclose a special copper conductor specifically designed for carrying high-frequency current. The cables also carry the coolant, which keeps the conducting wire cool. The cables come in a variety of lengths, including 30, 50, 80, 120, and 140 feet. It is recommended that preheat cable covers be used to protect the heating cable from slag and molten metal created during welding. These covers can withstand temperatures up to 650 degrees Fahrenheit. Therefore, they should only be used in preheat applications. Preheat covers should not be used in stress-relieving applications. Components of a liquid-cooled ProHeat system include two styles of silica insulation designed to create a friendlier work environment: the preheat blanket and the post-weld heat treatment blanket. The insulation is optimally designed and sized to hold heat in the workpiece, protect the cables, and set the magnetic coupling distance for the electromagnetic field. The insulation can also be reused multiple times, significantly reducing waste and creating cost savings. Half-inch thick preheat blanket insulation is available for preheat and hydrogen bakeout applications. Rolls are available 6 and 12 inches wide and in lengths of 10 to 20 feet. The insulation cuts cleanly, wraps easily around pipes, and is simply taped securely into place. Post-weld heat treatment blankets are specifically sized to the diameter of the pipe to be treated. Available in a variety of sizes, they can be used for any heating application. Each blanket is clearly stenciled with the diameter, length, and width dimensions, and part number. A visible center line is also stenciled on the blankets to correspond to the joint being heated. The blankets wrap and tie easily and are highly durable. A blanket can perform for 50 or more thermal cycles. Setting up the ProHeat liquid-cooled system for a preheat or post-weld heat treatment is simple. You will need to perform system connections and will likely want to measure temperature. Refer to the Power Source Overview and Temperature Measurement sections at the left for detailed instructions. To demonstrate a liquid-cooled setup, we'll show a preheat setup on a section of pipe. We'll then show you how to use the ProHeat for a post-weld heat treatment. The coolant lines must be connected in order to run the liquid coolant through the induction heating cables. Attach the coolant lines to the cooler by screwing them onto the left-hand threaded connectors. Then attach the quick connects to the output cable. Control thermocouples should be welded in place at the center of the heating coils. At a minimum, there should be 2 control thermocouples on each side of the joint at the top of the pipe. Thermocouples can also be added to the bottom. Position the preheat blanket within 6 inches on either side of the weld joint. Overlap the end of the blanket at the top and tape it securely. You are now ready to put the induction heating cables into place. For preheat applications, a protective cover is wrapped around the heating cable to shield it from weld spatter. Grip the heating cable to form a loop and proceed to wrap the cable around the pipe. 3 to 4 wraps on both sides of the joint is typical for a preheat application. The loop must now be tied to the incoming cable to prevent the creation of a heat zone between the cables. Begin at the undersides of the pipe. Continue to tie the outgoing and incoming cables together. The remaining length of cable must be twisted to prevent the creation of any heat zones. The finished preheat setup should look like this. You are now ready to connect the power output cable. Connect the heating cable to the induction output cable and attach the jumper lines to the fittings on either side of the power cable connector. This will serve to route the coolant over and around the power connector and back into the heating cable on the other side of the connection. Attach the isolation fault magnet to the workpiece. Isolation fault protection is provided to shut off the machine if either the heating cable or output cable short to the workpiece. Never disconnect the heating cables or cable connectors during operation. Always turn off the output power before removing the induction heating cables. The process of a post-weld heat treatment using the ProHeat is similar to the preheat process. Generally, welded thermocouples are positioned within 1 inch of the weld joint, which becomes the center of the heat zone beneath the insulation. An easy-to-use post-weld heat treatment blanket should be positioned over the joint and thermocouples, taking care to line up the blanket's marked center line with the weld joint. Insulation blankets are sized to pipe diameters. Simply wrap the appropriately sized blanket, making sure the overlap is at the top, and tie it securely. For the post-weld treatment, it is important not to use the protective cable cover that's used in preheat. Doing so would melt the Velcro strips. Center the cable opposite where the leads will be exiting for an odd number of turns, same side for an even number of turns. This time, center the cable on top of the weld joint. Wrap from the center to the outside an equal number of times on each side of the center. The number of turns needed is determined by the owner's manual and operating guide, and details can be found in the resource section of this CD. Because the cables must provide a uniform coil and temperature, tape the cables underneath so a full final turn is achieved below the pipe. The remaining length of cable must also be twisted to prevent heat zones. Then connect the heating cable to the output cable and attach the jumper lines to the fittings on either side of the power cable connector. Remember to also attach the isolation fault magnet to a clean surface. The ProHeat can also be used for a hydrogen bakeout process, occurring between a preheat and post-weld treatment. The setup is the same for that used in a post-weld heat treatment. Typically, it's performed using the same half-inch insulation blanket as used in the preheat. The liquid-cooled heating cables can also be set up in parallel arrangements similar to that used with air-cooled blankets. When setting up a parallel arrangement, use only same-sized pipes, 2 equal-length extension cables, and 2 series adapter cables attached to a single ProHeat power source.